CEO exposes single dad's bag. Amazing remark from his mother transformed the room in an instant. Ryan took a deep breath, glancing at the sleek glass building, the epitome of corporate ambition. Today could be everything for him, a chance to change not just his life, but that of his spirited daughter, Lily. He clutched the worn-out bag that hung from his shoulder, a family heirloom passed down from his late mother. It felt heavy, not just with its fabric but with nostalgia and expectation. He straightened up and entered, fueled by a mixture of anxiety and determination. As he sat before the ruthless CEO, a man infamous for sharp criticisms and an eye for vulnerabilities, Ryan felt a tightening knot in his chest. The CEO arched an eyebrow at the bag with immense skepticism. "What's this supposed to mean?" he quipped, dismissing the worn fabric. Every eye in the room shifted toward Ryan, and he could feel their judgment like icy fingers gripping his heart. Would they laugh at his attachment? Would they see a single father juggling responsibilities, not a qualified candidate? Doubt clouded his mind, gnawing at his determination. Yet, in the pit of his emotions, a flicker of his mother's spirit ignited. Ryan hesitated for a moment, then spoke up, his voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "This bag belonged to my mother. She always believed in the power of resilience, always told me to chase my dreams no matter what. It's a reminder of her tenacity." His heart raced as he shared the story, his vulnerability weaving a connection that began to captivate not just the CEO but the entire panel. For a glimmering moment, their initial judgments shifted. But just then, a rival candidate interrupted, throwing a jarring revelation into the air, a calculated move aimed to dismantle Ryan's fragile confidence. "What does it matter?" the candidate sneered. "He's just a single dad. What real experience has he gained balancing parental duties?" The comment landed like a punch, and the room fell into an awkward silence, tension thickening with every heartbeat. Ryan's mouth went dry, and the familiar wave of doubt crashed over him again. Did he really stand a chance here? He felt torn between his loyalty to Lily and the tantalizing prospect of a better life. Every moment of struggle and every sleepless night flashed through his mind, fighting to make it work, for both of them. But now, while his hands trembled, a darker thought crept in. Was he playing the pity card at a table that rewarded cutthroat pragmatism? Was it worth losing the one image of stability he provided for Lily if he didn't at least try? Ryan's heart raced, the stakes rising like the tide. Time was slipping away, and all eyes were on him, the question between ambition and integrity pulsating in the air. The ambient room buzzed with uncertainty, and once again, he felt the weight of the bag, his mother's belief crushing against a fear of failure that had haunted him for so long. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A moment of profound anguish engulfed Ryan as he stared down his rival. This wasn't just about landing a job, it was a fight for recognition in a corporate world that often overlooked men like him, devoted fatherhood seeing reduced respect. Could he summon the courage to reveal his true character, breaking free from the chains of doubt? The air buzzed thicker, his breath quickening as the CEO leaned in, intrigued but ever skeptical. What would Ryan unveil in that fragile moment, and could it be enough to redefine not just his fate, but also how those around him viewed ambition, integrity, and the worth of a heartfelt struggle? The tension ignited the room, and Ryan could feel the pivotal moment approaching, one heartbeat closer to making the choice that would either shatter or elevate their lives forever. Ryan felt a rush of confidence surging through him as he faced the CEO, yet the undercurrents of doubt lingered, a storm ready to break. Each heartbeat echoed his resolve and trepidation, pulling him like a tide that threatened to engulf his fragile determination. The glimmer of hope he was trying to hold on to teetered dangerously close to being extinguished. "Listen," Ryan started, his voice rising above the murmur of onlookers. "I know you might see my situation as a disadvantage. But every late night, every moment I spend figuring out how to balance work and parenthood has taught me lessons no textbook could." He focused intently on the CEO's eyes, searching for a flicker of understanding, a sign that he was not just being dismissed as less than. "I may be just a single dad, but in that role, I've learned responsibility, multitasking, and the kind of perseverance that is rare in corporate settings. Every challenge I face with my daughter teaches me how to navigate problems at work. These experiences shape me into a candidate capable of handling pressure with grace." The CEO narrowed his gaze, seemingly weighing Ryan's words. His skepticism began to crack as the tension in the room shifted, curiosity replacing derision and unanticipated hunger for Ryan's key selling point started to surface. Yet Ryan was aware that his journey was far from over. He felt the presence of his rival loom like a shadow, ready to pounce on any moment of hesitation he displayed. "What do you really bring to the table, Ryan?" His rival pressed, rearing up once more with a mocking, challenging smile. "Suddenly being a father makes you an expert in business?" That provocation struck a nerve deep within Ryan. He almost recoiled but instead stepped closer to the edge of his communication, leaning into the challenge. "It's not just about being a father, it's about being a person who adapts, learns, and overcomes obstacles. The essence of leadership is resilience, empathy, and the ability to motivate others. I have ample real-world experience in that," he answered, letting the weight of his conviction land heavily in the unwelcome silence. His words began to echo, reverberating off the walls of the sterile boardroom, as if they were a call to arms against the entrenched skepticism that had long existed. For the first time, Ryan felt as though he was on the brink of discovery, not just for himself, but for the entire room. Here, in this high-stakes environment, he was learning he had garnered professional insight into himself he hadn't realized was hidden in plain sight. "Every decision I make is fueled by the need to provide for my child. It reshapes my priorities, heightens my awareness. Every moment I've spent with Lily hasn't softened me, it's hardened my resolve to achieve." In a boardroom, this power can translate to better teamwork and an understanding of different perspectives, he articulated, feeling the self-doubt begin to ebb just a little. The CEO leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, considering. The dynamic steadily shifted, doubt mingled with intrigue. Ryan's self-revelation wasn't just a defense, it was a revelation. But behind that glimmer of hope was another lurking question: was he merely painting a facade of confidence? Would anyone truly understand the depth behind his words? As he stood there, every fiber of his being begged for closure, the moment hanging palpably, Ryan realized that this was not just a chance to sway the CEO but also an invitation to explore his own depths. A spark flickered within him. If he could confront this challenge, to own his identity, what might that mean for his future and, crucially, for his daughter's future? And then, with a sense of impending finality, the CEO finally spoke. "I'm intrigued, Ryan, but what makes you think you can handle the brutal realities of corporate life, given the responsibilities waiting on the other side of that door?" Ryan's heart raced. The pivotal question had landed. How would he respond? He felt the pressure mounting, tension crackling in the air, the pivotal moment arriving at last. What could he reveal about himself that would redefine not just this moment, but the corporate landscape he hoped to navigate? Ryan inhaled deeply, feeling the air in his lungs expand with the weight of the CEO's question. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, every pair of eyes in the room fixed on him as if he were standing on the precipice of a vast chasm. This was the moment he had been oscillating toward, caught between his fears and his resolve. Grappling with the dual judgment of both his peers and his own inner critic, he began to sift through his thoughts. How could he most authentically demonstrate that he possessed the core tenacity needed not just to survive, but to thrive in a demanding corporate jungle? "I can handle the realities of corporate life because my life has been a reality check," Ryan spoke, his voice steady as he cast a glance around the room. Faces, formerly withdrawn, now showed glimmers of interest. The demands at work mirror the demands at home. Both require a single-minded focus and an understanding of what it means to navigate chaos with strategic clarity. In that instant, he thought not only of himself but of his journey, the nights spent awake, the planning sessions around a kitchen table strewn with remnants of playdates, homework, and fleeting moments of reprieve that were filled with more laughter than should have been allowed. It reminded him of the lessons his mother imparted to him during his childhood, the stories of hardship, her resilience shaping his very essence. My mother once told me, he continued, feeling an unexpected swell of emotion, that the measure of a person isn't how they respond to success but how they rise from failures. Every stumble as a parent is just another learning opportunity, much like every setback in business. You don't just survive, you adapt and evolve. This revelation resonated within him, fueling his boldness. The silence in the room transformed into a palpable energy, a subtle acknowledgement of the truth behind his words. He leaned forward, something inside him unlocking as he became less focused on the judgment and more on the belief in what he was saying. I have never backed away from a challenge, whether it's comforting Lily after a bad day or brainstorming solutions when a project falls off the rails. Each experience has built my toolkit for leadership. The CEO, still leaned back in his chair, now wore a contemplative expression. Ryan noticed that the scrutiny had shifted to curiosity, a softening in the demeanor that had initially seemed so obstructive. Encouraged, he ventured deeper into the vulnerability of his narrative. I won't pretend that juggling my duties as a father and an employee is easy. But here's the crux, it's not about balancing, it's about integration. I've learned to weave the threads of my life together into a more cohesive whole. With every word, he could feel an emerging sense of clarity, not just for himself but for those who would hear his story. The gravity of the moment expanded, creating ripples that might just shake the very foundations of the boardroom dynamic. What I bring to the table is not just a resume of skills but a relentless adaptability born from necessity. The demands of home amplify my capabilities in ways that you may not see at first glance. Despite the surge of confidence spilling from him, a flicker of doubt threatened to dim the light of his conviction. Would they buy what he was selling? Yet, as he scanned the room, he recognized a shared humanity reflected in their eyes, a convergence of struggles, perhaps unacknowledged but inherently understood. This realization ignited a quiet belief that he was capable of more than just holding a job. He could inspire, lead, and evoke strength within a team. I understand the brutal realities of corporate life. What I'm asking for is a chance to show you how those realities have transformed me into a leader unafraid to embrace both challenge and vulnerability. The CEO straightened, an unusual, assessing look in his eyes that sent a jolt through Ryan. This was no longer just an evaluation, it felt like a performance, each moment suspended in the balance of whether his authenticity would shine through. Just as he braced himself for an answer, the CEO raised an eyebrow and said, "I appreciate your perspective, Ryan. Now tell me, how do you plan to apply these lessons when faced with the toughest decisions, specifically when your heart pulls you one way, but the job requires something else?" Ryan's breath caught. The question turned the spotlight firmly onto the core of his being. How could he navigate the complexities of leadership while balancing vulnerability with professionalism? He had been asked to dig deeper, and the path ahead suddenly felt both exhilarating and terrifying. What truths was he yet to confront within himself? Ryan's mind raced as he sat with the CEO's piercing gaze locked on him, waiting for a response. The weight of that question loomed, pressing down like a cooling mist enveloping a newly revealed truth. How could he articulate the intricate balance between head and heart, between the ideal leader he aspired to be and the vulnerability that defined his humanity? Anchoring himself, he started to probe the depths of his experience for clarity. Ultimately, he began, choosing his words with care, it comes down to integrity. When faced with decisions that pull me in opposing directions, I remind myself of my core values. In corporate life, each choice corresponds to a broader impact on my team, my family, and the organization. I strive to weigh those against one another, asking, what aligns with who I know I am? The simple phrasing surprised him, yet it felt unmistakably authentic. His initial wavering confidence transformed into a steady pulse of conviction. With each articulate word, he peeled back the layers of his self-doubt, revealing a leader who grounded his decisions on principles rather than convenience. He thought back to moments when instinct collided with professional duty, when his phone rang during a ballet recital, and he answered only to learn of a critical project setback. In such instances, he had learned to make quick adjustments, still managing to honor both responsibilities. I tackle difficult moments by holding true to a guiding principle: my decisions should not cause harm to those I care about. I often ask myself how I would advise my own child in a similar situation. The CEO nodded slowly, clearly digesting Ryan's reflections. Encouraged by this subtle engagement, Ryan continued. A real leader isn't devoid of emotion. Instead, they seek to harness it, channeling it into honesty and resilience. Guiding my team through challenging times isn't just about metrics or strategy, it's about fostering a culture where we can collectively navigate uncertainty. As he spoke, Ryan caught a glimpse of the room's dynamics shifting yet again. Faces he had once viewed as scrutinizing now carried an air of openness. His words wove a thread of connection, bridging corporate rigor with the emotional depth of personal experience. It's not just business logic at play, he pressed on, determination sprouting anew within him. Consider the power of empathy. My experiences as a father drive my understanding of support, knowing when to encourage strength and when to offer comfort. Those rudimentary lessons spill over into the workspace, helping me nurture trust and forge stronger bonds within my team. A ripple of intrigue passed through the room as the CEO raised an eyebrow in recognition, the initial wariness replacing itself with respect. Ryan's perceived authenticity became a bridge to shared understanding. If only they could see him not merely as a single dad in a corporate suit but as Ryan, the resilient adaptator who embraced challenges with grace. Yet, there remained a nagging question in the back of his mind. Would his personal journey truly resonate with those who wielded power far beyond the walls of his experience? He could sense a turning point on the horizon, but insecurities whispered obscenities amidst the clarity. What if this transformation isn't enough? The question hit hard, challenging him to believe that vulnerability could indeed be a strength. What if the core lessons presented were still shackled by an old narrative of fear? He took a breath, summoning the will to push through that uncertainty. I choose to face the tough times head-on, even when feeling lost. I rely on collaboration, seeking counsel where needed and empowering others, knowing that my journey towards leadership is far from solitary. Rays of sunlight streamed through the glass walls, flooding the room in a warm glow as Ryan's struggle began to crystallize into a revelation. Yet just as he felt this clarity coalesce, the CEO leaned forward, his voice gravelly. Final question, Ryan. When the stakes are highest and internal conflict arises, which voice? Do you listen to your head or your heart? This question hung thick in the air, tempting Ryan into a deeper self-reflection. Here lay the crux of the leadership journey, how to reconcile his authentic self with the expectations of his role. The answer danced just out of reach, threatening to unravel everything he had built upon. Would he muster the courage to capture that duality on the cusp of vulnerability? Ryan's breath caught in his throat as the CEO's question hung like a judgment in the air. He could feel the scrutiny of his peers intensifying, their faces eager for the reveal of the secret he had shielded for so long. It was more than just a question, it was an invitation to plunge into the depths of his vulnerability. But was the answer one he was prepared to share? The silence bore down on him, amplifying the noise in his mind. Heart or head? The dichotomy felt excruciatingly familiar. His experience as a father often pulled at the strings of his decision-making, tenderness versus pragmatism. The memories of moments lost to work, a missed recital, a forgotten school event surfaced with painful clarity. Yet here was an opportunity to reshape that narrative, to mold his emotions into a cornerstone of his leadership. He could almost hear his mother's voice echoing in his mind, urging him to lean into the messy truth of who he was. Courage flickered within him, igniting a determination he couldn't ignore. It's about striking a balance, he began, his voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty thrumming beneath. In critical moments, I listen to both my heart and my head. Each part offers insights that the other might neglect. I've learned that logic alone can lead to calculated decisions that disregard the human element, while pure emotion can cloud judgment. Ryan paused, sensing the charged atmosphere around him. I recall a time when my team faced a crippling deadline on a project. Tension ran high, and I was torn. The logical solution was to insist on longer hours, a strategy I'd previously believed was necessary. Yet, the reality was that my team was suffering, burning out. I chose instead to listen to their concerns, hearing not only the issues they faced but also their ideas for solutions. As he shared this experience, he saw the subtle head nods ripple through the room. The CEO's expression conveyed interest mingled with approval. Ryan continued, his confidence swelling. In that instance, I elected to empower my team rather than impose upon them. We adapted our strategy, allowing moments of respite while pushing toward the deadline, and in doing so, we found more innovative solutions. The quality of our work improved, as did morale. A realization had crystallized within him: a leader doesn't solely dictate, he cultivates. The acknowledgement of fear mixed with fortitude formed a robust synergy within his perspective. Ryan's eyes flicked to the CEO, whose grizzled exterior seemed softened by the intensity of their exchange. Yet, with the shift in energy came fresh doubt. Which versions of himself would intersect when under the sharp glare of power? The CEO leaned back, rubbing a hand across his chin in contemplation. Your instinct to trust your team speaks volumes, Ryan. But can that philosophy hold when stakes soar, and decisions become personal? Ryan swallowed hard, the question echoing past his confident exterior like a chill in the air. True leadership was less about avoiding risks and more about embracing them, but what of the personal cost? He thought of his son and the lessons he had already failed to impart. His resolve morphed into clarity, a small yet significant break against the tension that gnawed at him. I see now that it is in navigating those personal costs where true growth emerges, he asserted, his voice echoing with conviction. We are more than just leaders, we are middlemen between our team's fears and aspirations. Acknowledging that does not weaken me, it fortifies my ability to nurture an environment thriving on mutual respect and trust. The room filled with a palpable energy, shifting even further toward acceptance. The CEO's eyes gleamed with something akin to respect as he posed his final challenge. Then, Ryan, if that balance leads you forward, what will you do when both heart and head provide contradictory paths? Ryan felt the weight of the question infiltrate his resolve, leaving uncertainty in its wake. In that single moment, he realized the upcoming choices would demand intense scrutiny, forcing him to confront not only the expectations of his role but the foundational truths of his identity. What if his refusal to choose between head and heart ultimately jeopardized the trust he was building? As he prepared to answer, the flicker in his heart clashed with the firmness of his mind. What lay ahead wouldn't be defined solely by decisions made but by the courage to stand firm at the edges of uncertainty. The room faded around him as he contemplated his next words, the tension rising a cadence of impending revelation, leading to the moment when everything could change. The tension in Ryan's gut twisted deeper, the question echoing like a distant thunder. He could sense the anticipation from the room, everyone leaning in just a bit closer, awaiting his next words. For a fleeting moment, he considered retreating into the safety of silence, where the weight of expectations wouldn't crush him. But the trust he aimed to build was now intertwined with his ability to be transparent about his struggles, something he had shied away from. I'll navigate those contradictions, he replied, his voice firm. I will lean into the discomfort and trust myself. The real danger would be to let fear dictate my decision. I've come to understand that a true leader is not defined by their unerring confidence but by their ability to make tough choices while remaining grounded in their values. So when my heart tells me one thing but my head suggests another, I need to pause, assess, and then act with intention. The CEO didn't flinch, his steely eyes analyzing Ryan with renewed vigor. The shifting atmosphere was palpable, something fundamental was taking root in this exchange. The people in the room were not just peers now but witnesses to a transformation unfolding in real time. Heart racing, Ryan felt alive, not the nervous kind of alive but the invigorating rush of potential and authenticity. Yet answers still danced tantalizingly out of reach. He recalled moments with his son, how his boy would run to him after a long day, eyes wide with disappointment or joy. Each of those moments reminded him that his leadership style, too, needed to echo the lessons of fatherhood: patience, empathy, trust. But would these lessons hold when faced with dire decisions, particularly when the threats became personal? Would he still have the same courage to choose vulnerability in those moments? The realization that he was not just shaping his career but also modeling behavior for his son sent shivers down his spine. Let us explore that deeper, the CEO urged, his voice a warm contrast to the tension. Imagine your team is in crisis. Resources are limited, and the stakes are high. You need to decide whether to stand firm on a course of action that may strain relationships or reconsider based on collective sentiment, where you might risk personal relationships with your superiors. What will drive you to make your choice? The question knocked the breath from Ryan's lungs. A crisis demanded clarity, but it was the personal stakes that complicated things. He envisioned a scenario facing his team's frustration while carrying the silent burden of his own ambitions, all while knowing that a misstep could shatter relationships he valued. Right now, he said slowly, I'm realizing that authenticity is a continuous practice. It's easy to serve platitudes about courage and transparency when stakes are low. When the heat rises, the battle is internal. I will need to assert what I believe to be right, not just for my ambitions but for my people. The CEO's nod was reassuring, but Ryan felt fresh doubt drifting in. Even as he vocalized his growth, he grappled with how will he confront the reality of these conflicts when they arose. Ryan's mind began to spiral again, focused on the necessity of preparedness in this uncertain terrain of leadership. Concrete strategies were needed, and he needed to cultivate not just his emotional intelligence but a sharp clarity for inevitable crises that loomed. But buried underneath this reflection lay an unasked question, one that flowed through every thought like a muted alarm. What if the decisions tested him to his core? The inner struggle was a tempest brewing, and Ryan could hear the distant rumble of trouble ahead if he didn't act soon. The room fell silent again, pregnant with possibility, as Ryan faced not only his truths but questions that demanded action. Would he embrace these inevitable conflicts, or would he retreat into the shadows of compliance and fear? The weight of choice loomed before him, one that could define his path as a leader, and as a father. Just then, the door creaked open, and whispers buzzed through the room. Ryan glanced up as a familiar face emerged, his son's teacher, holding his son's crumpled drawing, the one he had missed attending the art showcase for. The moment hung, electrified. How would he reconcile this personal cost with the demands of his new role? Ryan's heart raced, knowing that the answer to that unspoken question could shape not only his professional future but also the legacy he would leave behind. The teacher's presence sent a ripple of unease through Ryan, pulling him out of his intense introspection. He felt exposed under their scrutiny, the weight of his professional revelations now clashing with the deeply personal moment unfolding in front of him. The crumpled drawing, colorful, innocent, yet marred by neglect, spoke volumes about his priorities. As the teacher approached, Ryan's throat tightened. He managed a weak smile, hiding the battlefield of guilt gnawing at him. He could almost hear Oliver's voice in his head, echoing accusations of absence. Each brushstroke on that paper seemed to reinforce a tale he was reluctant to confront. When I saw this, the teacher began, her voice steady yet nurturing, I thought of how much creativity and potential is inside him. He wanted you to see it, Ryan. He's so proud of you. It's clear he admires you. Admiration. The word cut through the noise in Ryan's mind, amplifying the chaos of conflicting emotions. Would Oliver understand? That the more he focused on professional aspirations, the more he felt he was drawing away from his son. What kind of leader was he becoming, if leadership meant sacrificing moments that could define a childhood? Thank you for bringing this, Ryan finally managed, extending his hand and accepting the drawing. The crumpled edges brushed against his fingertips, electrifying him. Each contour of his son's doodles felt like their shared laughter, a vivid tapestry of delightful chaos he yearned to experience together. The CEO's eyes flickered between the drawing and Ryan's face, revealing curiosity and perhaps a hint of understanding. It was an unsaid acknowledgement that this moment held significance beyond the office dynamics at play. The disappointment Ryan felt was reflected not just in his professional journey but woven into the intricate journey of fatherhood, and that struggle was the epitome of his current transformation. How could he pivot? He could feel the room poised for what he would do next. Would he let vulnerability redefine his leadership approach? He needed to confront this moment head-on, not just for himself but for his son and team. Let us take a detour, Ryan said, voice firm yet softened by the revelation. I see now that my role extends beyond numbers and strategies. It's about connection, a balance between ambition and the tenderness we often neglect in pursuit of success. A collective exhale filled the room, and in that instant, Ryan felt the unspeakable weight of expectations gradually lifting. This was not merely an exchange of formalities, it was an opportunity for genuine engagement. Within a moment, Ryan planned to embrace this newfound clarity, reframing what success truly meant. The next meeting, he continued, let us include a space for personal stories. I want everyone to share their journeys, their challenges beyond work. Let us not forget what binds us as a team first, and professionals second. The CEO raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised but present in the moment. Do you think they'll open up? He inquired, the skepticism lacing his tone more an invitation than a dismissal. What they need is permission, Ryan replied confidently. When we affirm our vulnerabilities, we find strength in each other. It's time our successes are matched by our willingness to be seen, not just as workers but as whole people. His heart thrummed with a blend of anticipation and fear. What would this mean for his relationships at work? Could opening up about feelings inspire others? Would he confront objections from his superiors, or even worse, internal resistance? The conversation developed like tendrils of hope weaving through the atmosphere, yet Ryan couldn't shake the weight of his personal dilemma that lingered the moment with his son still a hush at the back of his mind. The idea of merging the lessons learned in the conference room with his fatherhood responsibilities now danced on the edges of his resolve. As he caught the teacher's encouraging smile, he made a silent vow. This journey demanded more than leadership strategies, it required a commitment to change, not just in the boardroom but in the puppet strings of family life. But as he stepped closer to this truth, the echo of their earlier discussions filled his head, and he couldn't help but ponder what deeper sacrifices might lie in wait. Could he remain resolute in his new approach when faced with the harsh realities of corporate pressure? This path felt both thrilling and fraught with danger, tempting him to reconsider the foundation he wanted to build for both his career and fatherhood. Just then, a notification pinged on Ryan's phone. A meeting reminder marked urgent flashed across his screen. The moment of truth awaited just outside those office doors. Would he risk everything he had worked for to honor his newfound commitment to authenticity? Would the echoes of his choices resonate with Oliver, or would sacrifice once again overshadow the intimacy he sought to cultivate? Ryan's hand hovered over his phone, the red notification a stark reminder of the looming meeting that threatened to unravel his carefully crafted intentions. He felt as though it represented the old version of himself, one driven by ambition yet unfulfilled. The urgency of work pulled at him like gravity, yet the words spoken moments earlier by the teacher lingered like an echo. This was a pivotal juncture. The conference room loomed like a stage set for performance, filled with eager faces, many of whom looked at him with a mixture of expectation and curiosity. He'd been their leader, often confined to the role of decision-maker, rarely traversing the emotional landscapes he now wished to explore. As he walked towards the meeting, his heart raced, not with the usual adrenaline of corporate competition, but propelled by a deeper resolve. What lay ahead was not merely another presentation nor a transactional exchange of ideas, but a chance at transformative dialogue, a transition from the typical corporate structure to something more intuitive and interconnected. He could almost hear Oliver's giggles filtering through the wall of professional doubt. As he entered the room, Ryan took a deep breath. He approached the head of the table, positioning himself at the nexus of two worlds, business and fatherhood. Before we dive into the agenda, he began, his voice steady despite the surge of vulnerability threatening to disturb his composure, I want to propose something different today. The collective silence was palpable, curiosity etched across their faces. With a glance at the crumpled drawing safely tucked in his pocket, he continued. I believe we owe it to ourselves to share who we are outside of our roles here. I want to invite each of you to share personal stories, how your experiences shape the professionals you are. The response was initially met with skepticism. Eyes darted around the room, uncertainty mirrored in their expressions. But Ryan persevered. If we're going to create an environment where we support each other, we must first be seen as whole individuals. He had expected objections, questions, even a few dismissive huffs. Instead, a softer energy began to fill the room. Slowly, one of his colleagues, Jenna, took a breath before recounting the challenges she faced balancing her work and caring for her aging parents. I often feel torn, like I'm never doing enough for either, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. The sincerity of her words acted as a catalyst. Others followed suit, revealing hidden struggles and triumphs. One story recounted a painful loss, another shared the burden of expectations weighing down a proud parent. With each shared narrative, the collective atmosphere shifted from a sterile exchange to a genuine human connection festering in the vulnerable openness of each participant. As Ryan listened, he discerned a palpable shift not only in the energy of the room but within himself. He witnessed his colleagues shed armor built by competition and societal pressure. They were undergoing small transformations, bravely displaying their struggles and victories. Yet, as interconnectedness blossomed, the shadows of his own sacrifices lurked ominously in the corners of his mind. Could he maintain this level of openness while juggling corporate expectations? He felt the internal war intensify. The fear of judgment was fierce, but intertwined with a burgeoning bravery. As he considered how this warm vulnerability might be juxtaposed against rigid corporate practices, another meeting alert flashed on his phone, this one prioritizing financial targets and quarterly reviews. The contrast could not be ignored. The internal conflict clawed harder, reminding him of the sacrifices he faced daily. After this, Ryan declared, finding strength in honesty, we'll have to prep for those targets, but let us keep this rhythm of personal sharing each month. It will foster trust and rapport. The room had transformed. Encouragement and understanding danced among them like sparks of electricity. They were ready to face challenges as a cohesive unit rather than isolated warriors. But just as he felt a sense of satisfaction begin to blossom, his phone buzzed again, a message from Oliver. It was a photo, a new drawing, bright and bold, with the words "Look, Dad," plastered across it. Instinctively, Ryan felt a poignant tug at his heart. Could he carry these newfound insights home, bridging the gap between his professional aspirations and his commitment to being present for Oliver? Before he could delve deeper into this thought, the CEO began addressing the financial reports, abruptly severing the connection Ryan had just built. The contrast was stark and challenging. Could he successfully merge these realms without compromising either? Was it too late to pivot his priorities? A gust of determination surged through him. Just as the potential of a new direction began to crystallize, he realized the crossroad he stood at might demand more sacrifices than he was prepared to make. The decision weighed heavily on his mind as he sat back, torn between worlds that threatened to collide without warning. Would he allow his professional ambitions to stifle his commitment to his son's growth? Would he forfeit family engagement for further accolades? As he navigated the ensuing discussions, the tension in the air thickened. Ryan knew he had to face the depths of this duality head-on. Would he create a new standard of leadership, or would the inevitable pressures pull him back to old ways? The realization struck him: the path to authentic leadership would lead to perilous choices, but it was a risk worth taking for the sake of connection, a connection he needed desperately to cultivate with Oliver. As the meeting wore on, Ryan's resolve solidified. He had found a profound call to action today. He was not done yet. But, unknown to him, a challenge awaited just around the corner that would put everything he discovered to the test, blurring the line between leadership and fatherhood in ways he could not yet foresee. Ryan sat in the back of the meeting room, the noise of corporate jargon swirling around him, yet it felt muted as a distinct thought consumed his mind. He could no longer ignore the growing tension between his career aspirations and the fundamental need for authentic connection, both at work and home. Each word spoken by the CEO faded into the background, replaced by an urgent internal dialogue. Was he really making the right choices for himself and for Oliver? The tension broke when Jenna spoke again, her voice trembling but firm. "I never wanted to just be the employee who met quotas. I wanted to be seen as a person. Just like you all." Her vulnerability acted like a mirror, reflecting Ryan's own fears. They weren't just colleagues, they were fellow travelers grappling with responsibilities and dreams. With his pen now poised over a blank notepad, Ryan found his thoughts coalescing into a plan. What if this connection they had formed could be sustained even when the intensity of deadlines re-entered their lives? If they could honor their shared humanity amidst the corporate grind, it could redefine their team dynamics. He was no longer just Ryan, the top performer. He was Ryan, a father seeking balance. The room buzzed as the discussions shifted towards organizational strategy. Yet, an unsettling thought gnawed at him: was strategy all there was? Could words rooted in authenticity reshape their metrics of success? "I'd like to propose a shift," he announced, cutting through the dialogue, his voice gaining strength. All eyes turned to him. "Instead of leading with numbers, let us lead with stories. What if we built our strategies from shared experiences? It could guide our decision-making process and enhance our productivity." The room erupted in murmurs, whispers of surprise, curiosity, even a sprinkle of skepticism. Ryan met their gazes, his heart pounding. Normally, he would relish the sound of debate, but now, it was the silence weighing heavily on him, stoking his fear of rejection. Yet, amid the tension, he sensed an opening. "We could start with our monthly personal sharing, but also create collaborative projects centered on the individual interests and challenges we all shared." He could see their curiosity shift to consideration, the possibility sparking new energy. Just as he felt a flicker of hope, a sharp voice interrupted. Mark, a senior executive synonymous with strict metrics, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "That sounds great, Ryan, but how do you expect that to drive results? Business is about efficiency. Stories don't pay the bills." Navigating Mark's critique was a minefield. Ryan's stomach churned. However, he forced himself to respond, tapping into the determination he had unwittingly fostered during the earlier sharing. "Perhaps stories are what will drive deeper engagement. When employees connect on a personal level, they are more committed, more productive. Isn't that what we ultimately want? A thriving culture?" In that moment, he felt a tug of determination. He was stepping into uncharted territory, challenging the status quo and risking backlash. But if he was going to advocate for the integration of leadership and fatherhood, he had to confront those entrenched in conventional methods. Perhaps this confrontation was what he needed to test the very fabric of his values inside a cold conference room, and his warm family life at home. As the conversations in the room took on a convoluted nature, Ryan felt the pull of unresolved thoughts about Oliver bubbling just beneath the surface. The drawing he received flashed through his mind again, a stark reminder of his other role that had brought him to this very moment of duality. Could he fight for a new path without sacrificing the one at home? With the stakes rising, Ryan's breath quickened as he began to sense the weight of his responsibility. The decision to merge his new insights into the professional realm clashed sharply with the ease of following the path of least resistance. Could he genuinely sustain this transformation, or would he revert to familiar routines? Then the unexpected happened. The CEO, having observed the escalating discussion, leaned forward. "Ryan, what do you think would happen if we let those stories lead us? Can you share how this shift could ultimately affect our bottom line?" The room grew silent, tension coiling like a spring. This was not merely an invitation to elaborate but a challenge he hadn't expected. Could he solidify this fledgling concept into actionable insights that would hold weight beyond personal significance, a crisscrossing of his ambition and purpose? As anticipation mingled with apprehension, Ryan realized he faced a defining moment. With the eyes of the room on him, he had to not only convey the value of nurturing human connections but also be ready to confront the discomfort that came with it. "Let us reimagine success," he started, his voice steadying. "It isn't just about metrics. It's about the stories that drive those metrics. A team engaged on a personal level will surpass what any quarterly report predicts." It was time to step fully into this uncharted territory, the heartbeat of leadership intertwined with the pulse of fatherhood. With both worlds colliding, Ryan prepared to embrace the next chapter of his journey head-on. But even as he spoke, he felt a shift stirring just beyond the horizon, one that would test every ounce of the foundations he was attempting to construct. Would the vulnerability he sought to embrace ultimately reveal brokenness he had yet to confront? The meeting concluded, yet the weight of Ryan's words lingered in the air, transforming the atmosphere from one of skepticism to cautious optimism. As the team vacated the room, the CEO leaned back, absorbing the broader implications of Ryan's vision. For the first time, Ryan sensed a crack in the armor of corporate rigidity, the potential for genuine connection paving the way for radical change. In the days that followed, Ryan initiated a series of informal lunches and gatherings, inviting his colleagues to share their personal narratives. Stories exchanged became threads weaving a tapestry of shared experiences, fostering an openness that transcended corporate competition. Conversations blossomed, challenges transformed into collective triumphs. The narrative shifted around the office, redefined by authenticity, dialogue, and empathy. Ryan, invigorated by this new culture, felt himself growing in ways he had longed for. He embraced vulnerability as a cornerstone of his leadership. During a particularly impactful meeting, he revealed the crumpled drawing from Oliver, sharing its significance not just as a father but as a leader striving to integrate personal truths with professional dynamics. This act of transparency resonated, triggering heartfelt exchanges that echoed through the morale of the team. Months passed, and the results were undeniable. Productivity soared. Team dynamics strengthened. When quarterly reports came in, not only had they met their targets, but the way in which they achieved them had evolved fundamentally. The recognition wasn't just limited to numbers. The corporate culture matured into one where individual contributions were respected, valued, and celebrated. Then, as fate would have it, Ryan received an unexpected phone call. The CEO was extending an invitation for a leadership retreat, where each participant was to showcase the transformative strategies they had fostered within their teams. It was an opportunity to present their success stories to an audience excited by innovation, a moment he could seize to cement his newfound approach as the accepted standard of leadership. Faced with the challenge of articulating the lessons he had learned, Ryan prepared diligently, immersing himself in the intricacies of storytelling. Standing at the podium on the retreat day, he exuded a sense of calm. He welcomed the apprehensive energy that coursed through the crowd, the same energy that had once held him captive in doubt. "I want to tell you a story about leadership," he began, the weight of his journey echoing through each word. He candidly revealed the challenges he faced balancing work and fatherhood, infusing moments of struggle with the resilience he had cultivated over time. He articulated the profound shift in his professional life, highlighting the pivotal role of vulnerability in transforming not just teams but entire corporate cultures. The response was overwhelming. His colleagues, leaders from various sectors, leaned in closer, captivated by the rawness of his truth. They began to connect depths of their own lives to the fabric of his narrative, breaking down barriers built on misunderstanding and skepticism. By the end of his speech, applause erupted, a cascade of gratitude for exposing not just a method, but a profound transformational philosophy that resonated with the core of their humanity. As the clamor subsided, the CEO approached Ryan, his expression undeniably altered. "You've redefined what leadership can be. This isn't just about transforming our firm, you've illuminated a path for others to follow." In that moment, Ryan felt an exhilarating blend of solid confidence and authentic fulfillment. He had conquered not just the external challenges of the boardroom, but also the internal conflict that had once threatened to derail his aspirations. Through the act of embracing and sharing vulnerability, he had forged a connection that bridged the often widened gaps between professional endeavors and personal life. Ryan returned home that evening, his heart full. As he collapsed beside Oliver, who was sprawled out with crayons scattered across the floor, he took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of connection envelop him, a well-deserved moment of fulfillment. No longer torn between his roles, he realized that his journey had not only transformed his professional life but had fundamentally reshaped the essence of his fatherhood. Each challenge had become an opportunity for growth, and every struggle a lesson in resilience. As he reflected on his journey, he embraced the realization that true leadership lies in the willingness to show both strength and vulnerability, creating spaces where others can rise alongside you. Ryan had arrived, not just as a leader but as a dad who understood the beauty in balance, integrity, and the power of connection. He achieved individualized growth, cementing his place not only within the company's structure but in his son's world, a legacy built on resilience, understanding, and above all, love. This is your moment. You need to subscribe now to catch our next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation and growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this impactful journey. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how the journey of personal overcoming truly unfolds. Don't wait even one more second to elevate the stories that shape our lives.